All right, welcome to this explainer, where we are taking the absolute top Azure Solution Architect interview questions and transforming them into a complete, working blueprint for enterprise-grade system design. If you're gearing up to sit in the hot seat, you already know that just reciting textbook definitions isn't going to cut it. You have to prove you actually think and act like a senior architect. So today, we're diving into the exact strategies, technical concepts, and critical decision-making skills that will help you completely own your next interview. To do this, we're going to follow the logical build of a real-world cloud environment. We'll cover core infrastructure and networking, move into security, governance, and foundations, tackle high availability and resilience, explore modern apps and automation, and wrap up with migration and cost optimization. Let's get right into it. So imagine you're in the interview room. It just started and they drop that classic opener, "Tell me about yourself." Now, an amateur is just going to list off their past job titles, but this is your golden opportunity to instantly frame yourself as a holistic problem solver. You really want to position yourself as someone who designs highly scalable, secure solutions using a broad toolkit. Talk about how you leverage things like Azure Kubernetes Service for modern apps, Azure DevOps for automation, and Azure Policy for strict governance. You want them to immediately see you not just as a system admin, but as a deeply strategic, enterprise-ready architect. Okay, let's start pouring the concrete with Section 1, Core Infrastructure and Networking. Now, you are absolutely going to be asked to explain the difference between availability sets and availability zones. It's a guaranteed question. The key here is realizing that sets are purely logical groupings. They protect you from localized hardware failures or update reboots within a single data center. Zones, on the other hand, give you a much higher level of resilience. Why? Because they are physically separate data centers within a single Azure region, complete with their own independent power, cooling, and networking. When you tell them you default to zones to hit that 99.99% uptime SLA for mission-critical stuff, you're signaling that you design for true, real-world fault tolerance. Once you've got your data centers picked out, your blueprint needs secure pathways. The Azure Virtual Network, or VNet, is your foundational building block. But when they ask about it, don't just say, "It's a private network." Explain it as your ultimate isolation and communication strategy. Talk about carefully planning IP address spaces, using subnets to segment traffic, leveraging network security groups as filters, and setting up VNet peering to securely connect isolated networks. It's all about ensuring your workloads only talk to exactly who they're explicitly allowed to talk to. And speaking of who they talk to, you're going to get asked about hybrid cloud architecture. Almost no large enterprise is 100% in the public cloud, right? They've all got legacy on-prem systems. So when they ask how you connect that shiny new VNet back to their local data center, confidently list off your hybrid tools. You've got VPN gateway for standard encrypted internet connections. If they need strict SLAs and massive bandwidth, push for ExpressRoute. That's your dedicated, private, high-speed link. And to really blow them away, bring up Azure Arc and Azure Stack to show you know how to extend Azure's management plane across multi-cloud and edge environments. With our networks securely connected, we're moving right along to Section 2, Security, Governance, and Foundations. A really crucial concept to master here is the Azure landing zone. Remember, a landing zone isn't just one tool you deploy. It's a pre-configured, best practice environment. Think of it like a fully prepared plot of land, where the plumbing, the electricity, and the security gates are completely installed before you ever start building the actual house. By laying down strict governance, identity, and security foundations right at the start, landing zones let enterprises deploy hundreds of workloads consistently and securely, completely preventing them from reinventing the wheel with every new project. If they throw you that incredibly broad question, how do you secure an Azure environment? Don't just randomly list off tools. You want to strongly advocate for a layered, zero-trust architecture. Assume breach, verify explicitly, use least privilege. Walk them through how you rhythmically layer your defenses. You start at the front door with identity management using Azure Active Directory and MFA, then control access with RBAC, step down into the network level with NSGs and Azure Firewall, and finally, secure the actual data using Key Vault for secrets and robust encryption for data at rest and in transit. That shows you see security as one holistic ecosystem. But security without governance is basically just chaos. To keep those security layers compliant, you have to master the Azure governance hierarchy. You use management groups to apply sweeping policies across multiple subscriptions, and then resource groups to organize the actual deployed assets. By enforcing Azure policy, like using deny effects to physically block non-compliant resources and mandating strict tagging up at the management group level, you guarantee operational consistency. Basically, you're building guardrails to prevent a rogue developer from spinning up a ridiculously expensive, unsecure VM in the wrong geographic region. Okay, so your environment is secure and governed. Now, how do you prepare for the absolute worst? That brings us to Section 3, High Availability and Resilience. This is a total make-or-break interview moment. You prove your architect chops right here by explaining how you combine services to eliminate any single point of failure. You don't just say, "Oh, I'll run a nightly backup." No, you explain that you designed for strict recovery time and recovery point objectives. You combine availability zones for local resilience with Traffic Manager or Azure Front Door to instantly route global traffic away from a downed region. You talk about geo-redundant storage and SQL auto-failover groups so data survives a massive outage. And you wrap the whole thing up with Azure Site Recovery for rapid, orchestrated failover. While we're talking about routing traffic, watch out for this classic interview trap. They will invariably ask you the difference between Azure Load Balancer and Application Gateway. It's actually completely obvious once you look at the network layers. Azure Load Balancer is a Layer 4 tool. It's brute force, blindly distributing TCP and UDP traffic super fast. Application Gateway, though, is Layer 7. It's your highly intelligent tool specifically built for web applications. It understands HTTP routing, it handles SSL termination, and it even packs a web application firewall to block things like SQL injection attacks. Knowing exactly when to use which is absolutely key. So our infrastructure is highly available and routing traffic beautifully. Let's move into Section 4, Modern Apps and Automation. Before you even mention deploying applications, you've got to talk about deploying the infrastructure itself. They're going to ask about infrastructure as code, or IAC. Just think about the pain of manual configuration in the Azure portal, the slow deployments, the inevitable human errors, the missed settings. You want to present IAC as the modern, heroic solution to all of that. By defining your infrastructure declaratively using ARM templates, Bicep, or Terraform, you get completely repeatable deployments with strict version control. The magic word to drop here is idempotency, meaning you can run that code 100 times and the environment will end up in the exact same state every single time. And how do you securely execute that code? That is where Azure DevOps enters the chat. Using those exact IAC templates, Azure DevOps automates your entire CI/CD pipeline. Walk the interviewer through how you use Azure repos to securely store the version code and pipelines to automate the testing, the approval gates, and the final deployment. This is what drastically improves your delivery times and practically eliminates all those manual human errors we just talked about. For the apps themselves, you are definitely going to get asked about Azure Kubernetes Service, or AKS. Why use AKS instead of just spinning up your own raw Kubernetes cluster on VMs? Because AKS is a deeply managed platform. The killer feature, the exact answer they are looking for, is that Azure handles the Kubernetes control plane for you. That removes a massive amount of complex operational headache. You just pay for and manage the worker nodes. For any modern cloud-native deployment using microservices, AKS is basically the undisputed champion for autoscaling and zero downtime rolling upgrades. The environment is built, apps are running smoothly and securely. Finally, we move to Section 5, Migration and Cost Optimization. Interviewers love a good scenario question. Something like, we want to migrate from our physical data center to Azure. What's your approach? Don't panic, and definitely don't just jump straight into moving servers. Calmly walk them through a logical sequence. Start with a deep assessment, using Azure Migrate to find those hidden dependencies. Then, design your target network architecture. Next, explicitly lay out your strategy. Is it a simple lift and shift rehost? Are you refactoring to use platform services or re-architecting entirely? Finally, plan your backups, run a small pilot, validate it, and only then do you move into post-migration optimization. Having a structured approach is absolutely everything here. In speaking of optimization, how do you control costs is a guarantee. Cost optimization isn't a one-time thing. It is a continuous duty for a senior architect. Prove your fiscal responsibility by listing out some heavy-hitting tactics. Talk about buying reserved instances for predictable workloads to lock in massive discounts. Bring up Azure Hybrid Benefit if they already own on-prem licenses. Lean on Azure Advisor for automated savings. Talk about right-sizing resources, configuring auto-scaling, and setting up automated runbooks to just ruthlessly shut down expensive non-production VMs over the weekend. Eventually, you'll hit the HR portion of the interview, and they'll ask, why should we hire you? Your answer needs to project the ultimate architect mindset. Focus not just on technology implementation, but on security, scalability, reliability, and most importantly, business outcomes. Literally anyone can learn to click buttons in a portal. You need to confidently express that you have an unwavering focus on delivering real value. You don't build tech just for the sake of it. You build robust platforms that actively drive the company's profitability and agility forward. As you prep for your next interview, keep this foundational philosophy right at the front of your mind. Every technical tool, every VNet, every single governance policy is just one piece of a much larger strategic puzzle. Ask yourself, not just what these services do, but how you can transcend those textbook definitions to become a true builder of the cloud. How will you take these concepts, align them with real business value, and design the future of your organization's environment? Good luck on your interviews, keep learning, and we'll see you in the next explainer.